it's useful to think about private security as agents of human rights impacts. I think, though, what's often overlooked is how private security personnel can also be subjects of human rights abuses as well. So we have a duty of care as employers to our personnel.
We don't notice security personnel, right? So I think therein lies the first problem, is that we're dehumanizing the people who are responsible for the delivery of security services.
The conditions that security guards are kept in and subject to really is worse in some cases than the very rights holders that we're there to meet and interview. And I'm talking about, bonded labour, forced labour conditions, passport retentions, working hours, where often security is outside of the norms of other parts of the labour law, for example. Private security has an opportunity, particularly through ICoCA membership, in fact, of getting ahead of the curve when it comes to clients doing due diligence on the companies in this room. I think due diligence can be super positive in shining a spotlight on this industry. More could be done to put this on the investor agenda.
We started our work with ICoCA, I want to say, about 4 years ago. We started to transform the way we deliver security services in our value chain. I have not heard yet of another instance where the requirement to uphold human rights practice, membership of an international organization that works in the private sector security human rights space, and holding security service providers accountable to a minimum standard of training for our security guards is not common practice. And this is, again, comes back to the question around accountability. Who is asking? Nobody's asking, therefore nobody's solving for these problems.
If you can't answer the one question, which is, does your board care? And the second question, does your executive board care? And the third question, do you have a governance around it? And the fourth question, do you have a risk management around it? You already have a problem. Because if you don't have the right governance in place, who cares about E&S?
There's a lot of transparency nowadays. Whatever happens in different places of the world, it can get attention. And usually, example Qatar, it gets attention because of something else.
You should be very keen on IPOs, initial public offerings. So getting a company onto the stock market, because essentially that would increase the level of transparency automatically. An investor would really look at the sector. So they would look at mining and not at private security. As private security is just then an addendum to the main focus of the investor, which is the company in question that really, is the one that has the private security company as a supplier.
So these issues are here. They get important because of transparency. Investors don't really care about security companies because they don't invest in them and have no clue about that. But the security companies have to deal with that because of the transparency that nowadays around, and any NGO, any report, all of a sudden can hit them, and then they have to justify what they have to do.
Investors don't like liabilities. If you fall foul of the law, they don't like that, because it usually costs money. So, of course, the more things are regulated in this respect, then there will also be more attention.
In ESG, you can get data from what companies report. The reporting is a good thing when it comes to environmental footprint or maybe diversity, such questions, but not when it comes to the S in ESG and human rights. So there's another source of information, and this is whatever actually is reported by sources from outside the companies. And I mentioned non-governmental organizations, but there are a lot of government organizations, the social media, etc. So the interesting data for investors and buyers, etc., in my point of view, are actually information from outside of companies. And
to integrate your security service practice into your human rights impact assessments. We want our security services to be tested against a high standard of human rights in the countries that we operate in.
What we're missing in this is the idea of the human impact assessments. So, for example, when you go out into the field and you have those conversations and you get perspective that is the real scenario of what is happening out there, very oftentimes that perspective is lost on the way to the official communication.
The ESG ratings, what is the problem? The problem with them is that they're not meaningful, because what one famous academic paper said, they make an aggregate confusion. So they take different data points. They might have even a security human rights data point. And then everything gets aggregated, and in the end you say, yeah, the company is quite okay, or it's bad. And that's complete nonsense. You must not focus on ESG, but basically you must stop with this aggregation and should focus on things that matter. What matters, for example, is human rights. And then you should talk as an investor to a security company or to a buyer that buys security services and say, how do you deal specifically, for example, with pay of your security guards? So this is a way to make it meaningful.